Golden State Warriors, which really isn't so much pending anymore. Time for a little sports and the law here on the Thursday edition of Chronicle Live. And for that, we're happy to welcome back in Steve Moskowitz, who's always kind enough to join us. And boy, this is a huge deal. Possibly $460 million trading hands, and a record by far for the sale of an NBA franchise. What has to happen now, to the best of your knowledge, for this actually to go through and be complete? And are there any pitfalls that could possibly see this thing unravel?
Sure there are, but they're probably unlikely. For example, we have to have a divestiture of the ownership in the other teams so there's no conflict. We need approval of the league. But it looks like it's pretty much going to go through.
You've been, no doubt, in a lot of major negotiations.
Yeah, of course.
You're in a situation where you've got a deal that you really like on the table, and you pretty much said yes, you're going to do it. Maybe not to a binding, and nobody necessarily knows for sure what the binding legality of an oral agreement would be, because we weren't in the room and we weren't privy to all that. But tentatively, you've got an idea that you're going to sell this person. Somebody comes to you with more money. Do you ignore that and go through it? Are you morally obligated to say, hey, I need to follow this because I told this guy I'm going to sell it to him, even though there's more money on the table?
Morally is one thing, legally is something else. And you can certainly have a verbal contract. And a lot of times you'll have lawsuits over whether you had the contract or not. I'm also sure there were lots of witnesses there. There were law firms on both sides. You have a lot of heavy-duty people that say, well, wait a minute. Certainly you're going to have all the appropriate writings, but a lot of times you'll have something, a letter of understanding, a letter of intent, there's memos, there's exchanges. There's a lot of things to be strapping that down.
So basically you're saying that it could be one way or the other, whether or not they could have walked away from it and taken a deal from Larry Ellison had it been more attractive.
I would say that it would be very unlikely they could. I'm sure that they arranged something that you wouldn't just say, you know what, I changed my mind, Larry upped his offer, I'm going to go for it. I would think that would be extremely unlikely.
All right, hypothetically, if the NBA, for whatever reason, said we really want Larry Ellison to own this team, and you know, they decide that, you know what, our Board of Governors isn't going to approve this deal. Could that possibly happen, or would they be opening themselves up to a lawsuit?
Now, it wouldn't be so much they really wanted Larry. It's they didn't want the current exchange. But then they'd have to have some really good reasons, because in those contracts, there's a provision there that normally approval is not supposed to be withheld for unreasonable reasons. And there'd be all kinds of lawsuits over, well, what was wrong with me? That probably is not going to happen either.
Just from a fan standpoint, how shocked are you by this, that the deal got to $460 million? And like you said, you've been in a lot of big money deals. This is a franchise that a year ago was estimated at $319 million by Forbes magazine. It sells for $140 million more.
I'm not shocked at it at all, because it's the physical location, not the place next to the Clippers, but it's the place in the Bay Area. It's a business investment. A lot of people like to support the team. It's a good business investment.
Do you think that the new ownership is going to come in and have any obligation to management contracts that have been signed, or is that just a matter of buying them out if they want to part ways and go in a new direction, a la with a Don Nelson?
I would think that there's going to be a lot of negotiations there, too. Most of the things work out that way. You know, you see the event that's televised, but it's like the Olympics. For the little bit you see on TV, there's a lot of training and sweating and straining. That's what really, most of what the work of the negotiators, the lawyers, the business people do is making that backroom deal. You see the sanitized, clean, okay, we were in agreement. You don't see all the things that went under it.
Well, no doubt that there's going to be a vetting process that has to be complete before this gets the seal of approval, but everybody seems to think that's going to happen. Stephen, good to see you.
Always
thanks for coming by.
Thanks.
And thanks to everybody who was on the show today. Boy, it was jam-packed. Ray Rattle, Matt Steinmetz, Damon Bruce, Ron Kroichik, Jerry Rice, John Miller, Jeremy Roenick, and Ted Robinson. Sportsnet Essentials next. We'll see you.
The opinions expressed on this